Hello, Career Lab, and welcome to a really awesome session tonight. I'm going to tell you about it in a minute because first I want to do a quick share out of where you should be at um, right now. Let's see if I can get some of this stuff off my screen. Okay, so looking at the repo, this is it. You're almost done. We're at the end of the second week. You've done all your LinkedIn stuff. Hopefully that all went great and you've put a bunch of valuable stuff on there and you're already getting some attention. But then this week was focused on the interview. So you've got your tech interview. So you were going to do a tech project and then meet up with a mentor to do a mock interview and then go over your project. And then the same thing with the job fit or the behavioral interview. Hope you've already gotten that done. That would be great because then you're sitting pretty. But if not, try and get it done by this weekend because that's our official time. I did put a message in the Slack. So if anybody is just swamped and just can't handle it, don't stress. Don't worry about it. Shoot a message to your partner and just say, I can't do it this week. If you want to do it later, send me a message and I'll see if I can get somebody who's got some time later this month or even sign up for the next cohort. That's totally fine. You can go through this again, maybe when life is not so crazy because the holiday season is tough. So everything is done except for this, our last session. And then on Sunday, we have the graduation at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. I think it would be adorable to have like a graduation background, like a stage or something, or if there's some sort of Snapchat filter for a grad cap, that would be hilarious. But what it really is just a debriefing. It's a chance for you to ask questions, to tell us how you did, what you thought, what was great, what could some improvement, any of those things. We want to hear them. And we just want one last chance to talk to everyone. So that's on Sunday. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'm going to be manning the chat tonight because I'm going to hand it over to Luke, who is going to share some really timely and
Yeah.
important information. Wherever you're at, in your career, your adult life, you might be brand new to tech. And if you are, that means there's some benefits and perks coming your way that you may have never seen before. So this is the chance to get a bunch of valuable information and prepare for that. So take it away, Luke.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This is like my fifth or sixth time. I forget how many times I've done this, but it's been a lot of fun. Get a lot of fun energy just from people like making this huge career change like you all are, or maybe you guys are just kind of retooling for the next push in your career, the next kind of leg. But it's always exciting to be a part of this awesome group too, which is the Collab Lab, and be able to help out. Today we're going to be talking about navigating your finances during a career change. And yeah, Shelly kind of hinted at it. Like there's a lot of things that could potentially change, a lot of new possibilities, a lot of new things that you may have never heard of before. And I don't want you to freak out when you get there. We'll kind of hint on a lot of those things, but always too in the future, if you're like, oh yeah, I remember hearing something about this, I'm in the Collab Lab Slack. So just reach out, shoot me a message, and I probably have some type of content on it. I am in the United States. I only serve people in the United States. So I know there might not be everything that overlaps completely, but I've also been able to find some resources for people in Canada and stuff like that. So if you have a question, even if I don't have the answer, I'll hunt down. I'll know a little bit better of what to hunt down and look for you. So just quickly about me, I live in Colorado, love Colorado. We moved here forever ago now, about 12 years ago. So originally from Illinois in the United States. I have four children, 5, 3, 2, and 1. And last night we went to the Polar Express. So you might hear some screaming kids because everyone's a little tired and had a rough day kind of adjusting. And we have a blue heeler dog as well. I started my company, Level Up Financial Planning, back in 2017. And now I've crossed the 5-year mark, which is, I guess, a big milestone for small businesses. So that's really fun to kind of been around this long and actually be at that point of stage where I'm super confident as far as how the future looks, where obviously those first years when you start anything like that is a little bit scary. I also launched tax planning just because a lot of my clients were always asking, hey, can you do my taxes too? And every year for the first couple of years, I was like, no, like let's work with someone. But the people they were working with weren't that great, or they tried doing it themselves and they kind of crossed their wires a little bit. So now I help out with that too. I also have a podcast and create tons of content. So that's just what I do every single day between my family and all the financial stuff I kind of talk about with clients. What we'll cover tonight. So, yep, we'll talk about kind of transitioning and all the new opportunities, but specifically is how to be financially successful. Uh, I'll go over a couple of example scenarios. So, you each have your own unique kind of path that you're going to be charting. It's different for everyone, but I'll kind of give you a couple of high level examples that you can kind of think about and start to apply to your situation as you're thinking about, well, what's a closer fit to you, and you start to build out your own game plan. I'll also tackle, this is probably my favorite section because we just kind of hit on things really quick. This or that, it's kind of like a frequently asked questions that I get. So I'll tackle the topics and I'll go over those things. Some of the answers that I have changed recently with how the world and the economy and all that stuff has been changing. So it'll be fun to talk through those things. What to beware of in tech as well. So lots of cool things. Also, some things that maybe less cool, a little bit more scary. And as long as you know about it, we can kind of plan around those things and help you navigate those things more confidently. I just did a different presentation for another nonprofit I support about how to navigate the recession. That's recorded, so let me know if you need it. Actually, it's in the Collab lab too. I think I shared it with everyone in the group. So you can go and watch that recording if that's something of interest. And then at the end, we'll do some Q&A. And if we run over time, I do have to run and kind of help get the kids to bed and all of that. But if it runs over, definitely feel free to keep asking Q&A throughout the Slack, and I might get back to you at 1 tonight or sometime tomorrow, but I'll definitely answer those questions as well. These are disclosures. So as a financial planner, I'm just required to say, hey, this isn't specific financial advice to any of you because I don't know all of your situation. I don't know everything going on. This is for educational information, and this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be a lot of things that you'll want to dig into, find out a lot more about, and so hopefully this will give you the confidence and just clarity as far as, well, what does this mean? And then as you start to kind of peel back the layers of the onion of your situation, what's kind of starting to apply for you when you get those job offers rolling in, you're comparing the benefits and all of that, you'll have a more confidence of, yep, not the first time you heard of it, and you can always dig in deeper and learn more. One interesting thing that I always run into with people is sometimes there's that wondering of, well, I just need more money. If I just had more money, that would solve all my problems. I'd be the happiest ever. And one thing that typically is the case is once you're making a certain level of income, it's not going to change your happiness level. If you're not content with 100,000, 110,000 isn't going to do the trick. 200,000 probably won't do the trick. And that threshold typically is around 80,000 is where you start to see this bend. It starts to flatten out, and because obviously early on, if you're making no money, well, that's going to be tough, right? If you're making 20,000, still pretty tough most places in the United States. And it's really 40, 50, 60,000, you start to have a better quality of life. But then your quality of life is just good. And it's just interchanging things, upgrading things that really ain't going to change that happiness level quite as much. So that's one thing you'd never want to necessarily do, start chasing money just for the sake of chasing money. Once you've reached a certain point where, yeah, things are good, let's make sure that we just build the best life that you can for yourself now, and we can use finances to apply towards that. But it always goes through that kind of process of, well, what is actually going to make you happy, and we'll build towards those things. It's not going to be the money, but maybe we can kind of do things in your life to make things easier for you. So how can you be financially successful? You don't have to make six figures. I think in the United States, that's a big target. Like, hey, if I make $100,000, I'll be really awesome. Like I mentioned, if you're not able to make it off of 80 or 90,000, well, making it to six figures, you're probably still going to have some spending issues. You still might not be able to be on top of your finances quite as well. I have a couple clients that are still below six figure marks, and they're well on their way to retiring early, doing all these things that are important to them. And I also have clients that are making 350, 400,000, and it's like, you're not going to be able to retire when you want to. You're not necessarily in control of all these things, and it's not all aligning with what your goals are right now. So let's figure out what's going on and start to kind of prioritize these things. So you don't have to make six figures, and that's important to know. you also want to establish good habits because I've talked with people about getting lucky and things like that. Well, luck is possible. Things can be happy and or things can happen that are lucky and you can be happy with those. But luck isn't a reliable strategy. So if you look at anyone that's won the lottery here, a lot of times they weren't good with their finances before. They win mega millions and they find a way to kind of crater and go bankrupt. And it's because they didn't have those initial good habits to kind of steer their way. So having those good habits, being disciplined, and that's going to be the thing that will make you successful today, tomorrow, and in the future. And so those are always going to be kind of the core tenets, and it's across every aspect of your life, right? Yeah, health, career, all these things. Yeah, you might get lucky and get a job, but if you don't do the job well, you're not going to keep it that long. So definitely want to have those good habits and just be disciplined with your approach of things and not just rely on luck, especially on the financial side of things. When you think about your finances, it is similar to any of those things. If you've graduated eighth grade, high school, college, anything that you set your mind towards, and you're like, hey, I want to do this thing, and you ended up achieving it, there's a bunch of kind of micro milestones all along the way. You've had them throughout the Collab Lab, all these different kind of interviews and things that you're kind of checking off. It didn't just happen. You had to go through a process and identify what that process is to reach those goals. And financially, it's going to be the same way. And at the end of the day, it helps having a game plan. You don't need it, but it definitely will give you peace of mind and give you clarity and make sure that you're going to reach your goals the most efficient way possible. And so, why do you need a plan? Well, this guy, Antoine, and I forget how to pronounce it. I kind of researched De Sant. I'm sure someone here could probably pronounce that better. I'm not going to butcher him. I'm sure he's well gone by now. But he said a goal without a plan is just a wish. And that is the case. How many people do we know? And maybe we're this way with certain aspects of our life where it's like, well, I wish things were like this, or I wish I could have this. Well, that's great, but if we're not actually going to go through and kind of put in the effort to figure out how to make that possible, it is just a wish, and really the only way you will get those things is through luck. But if you have a plan, like there's a high probability you're going to reach these goals, and so that's super important. It's going to help you see, well, where are you today? It'll help you go through the process of where you want to go. A lot of times I'll sit down with people for the first time, they're like, we just kind of wing it every single day. We don't know where we're going. We don't know if we should be planning. If when things come up, we just kind of throw money at it, and we don't know if we're doing the right thing. So where are you going? If you take the time, just kind of weekly or monthly, to check in with yourself, of well, what's important to you? Is it still important? And kind of just kind of keep going through those steps. You're always going to have a clear vision of what you're excited about. You'll spend your energy there. You'll spend your money there, and you'll feel a lot happier about kind of the progress that you're making. And are you on track? So you don't know where you're going, and you don't know where you're starting. How the heck are you going to know if you're on track? And uh, that's one of the fun things I've had with one of my clients. I was freaking out about giving them their official strategy guide, which is what I give my clients at the end of their kind of process, because they weren't on track. Like, hey, you guys are gonna not be able to retire until 69. They want to retire at 62. And I was freaking out. As soon as we went through this process, showed them that you're not on track. This is how to get on track. They've already started saving an extra $2,000 a month. And like they could have done that before meeting me. They could have done it before they had a plan, but they just didn't have that clarity. They didn't know for sure if it would even make a big difference. And so establishing a plan for yourself, figuring out where you are, where you want to go, and knowing whether or not you're on track, that will give you the insights. You still have to make the decision, or maybe you'll see, well, maybe that goal is not important. I don't care. Well, let's cross that off, and then you can see if you're on track at that point. The main steps when I think about just doing a quick plan, if you're just going to make a quick and dirty one, the first thing you have to do is just believe that you're capable of financial success. I've seen a lot of people self-sabotage themselves, whether it's financially or other areas of their life, where it's like, no, I don't deserve that. I felt that way in my career when I was like, I'm 27, making how much, and all I'm doing is helping all these rich people, and like, does this make sense? And like, I don't know if it's self-sabotage, but it did help me create level up financial planner where now I work with younger people. But like it was one thing that I felt really worried about as far as, well, do I deserve this? And we all do that in our careers too. And we do that financially is nope, don't deserve it. So when we go on spending binges and kind of shoot ourselves in the foot going to credit card debt. And so you are capable, you are deserving of these things. You put in a lot of work to get here for one, make this huge transition. So if you can do that, why can't you just kind of figure out how to realign your money so that you know where it's going and have better understanding of those? You want to identify those meaningful goals. We kind of already talked about that a little bit, why it's important to know where you want to go. Um, and I've had clients that have reached out and they're like, "Oh, I want to have $3 million." I was like, "Okay, well, why? What's that $3 million going to do for you?" And once we talked through it, it's like, "No, you don't need $3 million." He decided he wanted to take a sabbatical, stop working for a year. So that two very different things. But once we went through the process, it's like, nope, 3 million doesn't matter. It's just a random number I made up. And now that we talked through it, now we know a meaningful goal, and he wanted to take time, write, work on comedy, and do things that are not necessarily money related, but he needed money and time to have those possibilities to do this. He was a career changer too, so he saved up a bunch of money after his career change, and so he was able to take almost practically a full year off, and yeah, super good for health and a lot of things there. Step three is once you know where you want to go, we need to figure out, well, where is your stuff? How much money you're making? How much money do you have in other resources? Maybe you have old retirement accounts, old pensions, old stock. Maybe it's just a big savings account or something like that. Maybe you have home equity. There's a lot of things that sometimes you don't think about as a resource, but very much is so at the beginning. So early on in your kind of financial path for financial game plan, you're your biggest resource. So you definitely want to count your income. You want to plan well, how best to utilize that. Um, then you're able to see whether or not you're on track. And then you figure out, well, if you're not on track, these are the milestones you can take. If you need to have a $30,000 emergency savings, well, it starts first with putting $50 in emergency savings. And the cool thing about that is as you make progress, it does kind of reinforce. It feels really good when you start to see that emergency savings, like, oh yeah, like I'm feeling really good about that. And it allows you to have more clarity, enjoy your life a little bit more, and have more options and possibilities you can go after, which I'll talk about in a little bit too. Any questions on any of this so far? You guys can use the chat. You can come on video. And if not, we can keep moving on. Awesome. Good spot for me to take a quick water break too. Here, if you kind of look at the left side and the right side of those green dots, can you kind of spot what the main differences are between someone that's successful and someone that's struggling? So I'll tell you that successful people are on the left side, the struggling people are on the right side. And you guys can use the chat or you can kind of chime in there.
Yeah, Caitlin used the chat and said
Yep.
savings.
Savings. Yep. Yep. That one's super obvious, right? And then the next thing that you can see how the needs were separated from the wants from the successful people. People that are struggling, what they do, sometimes they do have savings, but they put it at the end. And they also kind of bunch the needs and the wants, like, nope, all this stuff I need. And it's probably not all needed at the same level. I used to go to Starbucks all the time. I can make coffee. I could put that as a need coffee, but what I do with it and how much I'm going to spend on that personally for me, a good chunk of that spending was a want for sure. And what happens for those people that are struggling is they don't save. They say, hey, if there's anything left over at the end of the month, I'll save that. And most people are really good at spending all the way up to that next paycheck. And they're like, oh, sorry, I didn't have enough savings for myself. I'll do better next month and we'll try again. And yeah, every single month we find ways to spend that all. Once you get that income jump that a lot of people will see with this career change to tech, there should be some sliver of savings available, or at least pay down debt faster and things like that. So there'll be excess income that you could start moving it in a direction and start having more control over your finances with the shift in income that you'll see. And It'll be important to do the savings first, have the needs, have the wants. You can have goals in there too, which are super important. And once you kind of break these things out, again, most of the time people will still spend all the way up to that next paycheck, but at least now we have a savings account. At least now we have emergency funds. And it also means that if something did happen, you lost your income, well, your needs and wants are probably going to be smaller than over here, same income and all that, but you're used to saving a chunk. So if something happens and you need to replace your income, you don't need to replace that savings for that month, that 2 or 3 months that maybe you're kind of in limbo, because you weren't spending it anyways. So you actually have less of a burden on your own finances if something happens with layoffs or something funky there. So that's one thing I always want to remind people is like doing things now, not only does it help you in the future, but it does help you absorb some kind of chaos that could come up at any time unexpectedly. This kind of highlights all the cool things I love about being able to present to you, anyone that's new, kind of in this career transition. Is the possibilities for a lot of you is going to be dramatically different than what you could have ever dreamed of before. You might feel like, oh, need to catch up, might be getting a late start on things just because of how the financial situation, how the career wise was working up until now. Um, you can do that now. That's crazy. It is remarkable how different people feel on the financial side and hopefully on the fulfillment of the career too. Sometimes not so much, and sometimes the financial stuff is enough to kind of carry them. Like, yep, still well worth it. It's not necessarily the job I dreamt of, but I'm able to do all these things, and it kind of makes up for those. So you can catch up if you need to, and you can catch up really quickly too. Um, there might be things you've never thought of, starting businesses, being able to travel, being able to take that sabbatical that client took. Like there's a lot of things that just before, like, what do you mean I cannot work for multiple months on by choice and still be on track to do all the other cool things in life that you can plan and think of. Finally have peace of mind. That's a big one, is not so much being on like, nope, my money is all going to needs. Like there isn't even rooms for wants. Like wants aren't anywhere because the income just doesn't support that. So having the peace of mind that you are doing all the things that you can do, and you don't have to worry quite so much. Like maybe you have up until this point, or have recently, or in previous years, you can take more risks. So I just received an email from a client about, well, we're thinking of starting this app, starting this business. Well, again, like if she was just working a $40,000 income, like yeah, she could probably do that stuff, but she also needs to keep working full time. When you're in this new set of possibilities, you can build up nice opportunities for yourself to take bigger risk. You can take more risk in your career if you want, because if you build up a savings quickly, well, maybe you're willing to work at that startup now and for a potential big payoff, more kind of career development and things like that. So you have more flexibility and more choice over those things. And sometimes retiring early is a big incentive too. Like, what do you mean I can retire at 50 or 55? Most people, most people are not going to retire ever at this point. You look at any of the statistics of where their savings are, what their retirement's doing, what Social Security provides here in the United States, and yeah, they're probably never going to retire, or their life's going to look dramatically different once they do leave work. So the ability to retire early is kind of crazy for most Americans if you think about it. So we'll go through a couple of examples. This is kind of the catching back up. This is an example of, well, someone's salary is now going to jump to 75,000 after taxes. It's still going to be a $15,000 increase to them, which is $1,250 a month. They've accumulated $10,000 in credit card debt, and the interest rate's 22%. So, and this is an old slide. Right now, interest rates are probably closer to 25, 26% because interest rates have been going up, unfortunately. So $10,000 in debt, paying a ton of interest to not be paying that off quickly. They also have a $25,000 auto loan. That one only has a 4% interest rate. they have a new 401k with their new employer, and that gives them a 3% match, and they have no emergency fund yet. So for them, what typically I'd advise in this kind of nice clean cut situation is, well, we want to do the 401k. So let's get the match. Let's do the 3%. You put in $188 a month. Your employer's going to put in $188 for free for you. So it's free money. That's why you want to do that. The additional 1,062 there roughly, apply that towards the credit card payment. So put that on top of the normal payment. Most people, if you have trouble spending, not sure necessarily how your credit card gets so high every single month, you might want to just stop using the credit card too until you kind of get better grapple on, well, where's your money going? Why is it moving in that direction? So stop using the credit card, make these additional payments, and you'll pay it off in 9.5 months. No longer will you be paying $2,200 a year in interest, which is what the case is if they're paying 22% on a $10,000 balance. That's a big chunk of money. That 2,200 that you can start applying somewhere else towards your goals, towards travel, towards kids' education, towards a home purchase. There's so many fun, cool things. I'm sure most of us would rather spend $2,200 on. Maintain the current auto loan payment since the rate is low. So I'm not necessarily in a rush to pay off low interest rates when there's other fun things that you might be able to apply it to and get a better return on life. Maybe not the best financially thing to do, but a lot of times people would prefer to travel versus paying off a really low interest debt. And you've worked hard to get to this point too. After the credit card is paid off, then start applying that towards the emergency savings. So now you'll have more money because now you don't have that credit card payment, that you just start building up emergency savings. Once that emergency savings get to a certain point, you might have more confidence and be able to do some more advanced stuff where, well, yeah, let's start planning for travel. Let's save for our travel in advance. Let's save for our travel monthly. So when it comes up, we're not freaking out. Where's the 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, whatever your travel goal looks like, it's no longer going to be like a panic button or let's go back into credit card debt now to go to Disney or something like that. So you can actually start to keep plowing money into emergency savings, find out how much is appropriate for you there, start putting money into a travel account, and still be able to start maybe increasing your 401k contribution as well. So that's that example. Any questions on that example?
Hey, Luke, I don't know if you noticed, but the timer started. Did you see it?
Oh, at the top, I see it now.
Yeah, I don't know what I did, but is now a good time to take a 2-minute break while I
Oh, yep.
stop, get that? Okay. So if
Oh,
those of you that are here last Saturday know what's happening, somehow I've messed up our Zoom and we've got the freebie 40 minutes. So what I'm going to do is
oh, Klessa, Klessa asked, what's considered a high interest debt? So it definitely varies, right? You can have your own personal thoughts on it. I've seen super wide ranges. I would say anything north of 5% starts to become, well, it's starting to get painful after that point. And you always want to kind of dig a little bit deeper too. Well, what's the best usage of that money? Would it make sense to do it somewhere else? If you were not going to pay off your debt and put it in a savings account because you get interest on your savings accounts, well, even the highest savings accounts right now is like 3.2%. So if you are paying 6% interest and your reason for not paying that off sooner is because you want to get 3% interest in a savings account, mathematically that doesn't work for me, and for most people it wouldn't. The only reason why we would want to still maybe keep that savings is because, well, you still probably want an emergency savings. So once you get that emergency savings funded, then that's really where you'll want to really tackle the interest even more heavily at that point. Yeah, and Caitlin said anything over market returns, and it definitely depends, right? Because some people are more conservative, and the market returns right now have been negative 20%. If you're invested heavily in tech companies, you might be negative 30%, negative 70%. So any any rate is higher than those crazy negative numbers there, and so that's all you have to really figure out, well, what's your game plan, what's your long-term expectations for the market returns, and don't rely off of whatever's happened most recently. Because again, I just showed you what it's been recently. Back during COVID, when things actually bounced back really heavily from COVID, people were getting 30-40% returns. And it's like, well, that's not reasonable to expect either. So you really want to think long-term market returns. And and everyone, I've always heard other people's opinions where that could range pretty widely. Some people do really expect 20% every single year. I've never seen that actually play out for for long terms. So you'll probably want to be conservative with your estimates, but yeah, once you start getting north of 5%, it does start getting more painful. And if there's not something better you could be doing with those funds, then you'll definitely want to consider it a little bit more. Anything less than that, though, it's still pretty cheap to borrow. And again, like it doesn't matter if you're paying a couple $100 of interest versus being able to use that to start saving to travel, and delay travel many multiple years. So that's really something that you want to take a look at and think about. So yep, and Caitlin, that's kind of where I feel is a good gauge. Is 7 to 8% is usually where I stress test it. If you think if your interest rate's higher than that, then we definitely want to pay. That's where credit cards usually fall in pretty easily. And then yeah, it starts to get tighter, right? In that 5, 6, 7%. Like, well, those are still not given. So sometimes people will weigh on the benefit of, well, I know for sure I'm going to save 5% if I pay off this 5% thing. I don't necessarily know what's going to happen in the next year. So that's where you'll want to make informed decision kind of based off of what you feel for your situation with your full kind of game plan in place. So, but yeah, it's on the extremes, it's a lot easier. If you know you have a 22% interest rate, definitely start paying that off aggressively. If you have 3% interest rate, not a huge rush to pay that off most of the time. I've had people that are just deathly afraid or deathly tired of just um, paying any interest to anyone. And so they don't care what they'd get somewhere else. They don't even want to pay 2% or anything like that. Perfect. And then the next one, rent versus buy. So this is the one that's really changed dramatically recently. Buying, always been a big fan of it, still a fan of it if you can afford it. But this year, the dynamics and the pricing on a monthly amount has definitely changed, where it's a lot more expensive to buy an equivalent property than when you compare it to a rental that you can rent out for a short term, usually a year is pretty standard. So what happened before? So before this last year, a lot of times you could buy a house and the monthly payment would be less than rent sometimes, or be pretty close to it. And in that case, well, a lot of times it still would say, well, let's buy it then, because you'll at least be building equity each and every month. Over time, that will definitely pay off in the long run. But again, like I said, buying now, if the monthly payment is $4,000, but you can rent the same equivalent property for 2,000, it has made it a lot harder to be like, this is a no brainer. It's definitely not. You definitely want to think about it a lot harder. Another big thing when it comes to buying versus renting is if you're relocating just for a new job or for just on a whim, not necessarily sure that's where you want to be long term, well, you might want to rent then. You might not want to be committed and stuck into a property long term if you make a purchase. So that's really the biggest thing that I'd say typically drives the buying versus renting. Once you know, like, hey, like me and my wife, when we realized that, yep, Colorado's where it's at, we look to buy as soon as possible. And interest rates were a lot different back then, but still will still hold up most of the time. Again, if you can afford it to make that work. Let's see. Yep. So when you purchase, I think this is, yep, for this question too. So when you buy, you need to pay taxes, interest, and insurance. You want to factor that into your monthly payment for sure. Most calculators finally have gotten around. So when you're looking at a Zillow or Redtail or Redfin, these things a lot of times now will incorporate in property taxes, insurance, homeowners association, taxes, all these things. For the longest time, like 10 years ago, if you were to go look at on a calculator on those websites, it would be like, oh man, this is super cheap. Like this is way less than rent. And a lot of times it will be a lot closer once you kind of factor those things in. And it's going to vary substantially. back in Illinois, where I'm from, people pay $12,000 in property taxes alone, 20,000, I think even. And that is dramatically different than here in Colorado. We only pay $5,000 in property taxes. So that alone like changes the payment dramatically. So location is going to play a big impact on property taxes, interest rates. That's why that change between purchasing versus renting is so different now, is because interest rates have really shot up over the last year. So we went from 2.75% interest rates to like 7.5% interest rates. And the math of that definitely changes the payments. Then insurance too. Yep, all kind of gets incorporated there. Yep, and then there are expenses to maintain and repair, and that's you definitely want to include that too, because what happens is if you're like, oh, this is gonna be tight, I can afford the monthly payment, but that's all you can do. What happens when you're just that unlucky for that that time, and your heater goes out and you're paying 15, $20,000 for that? So you might have heard people that have purchased a house say that they're house poor and they can't really do anything else. They can't do anything else literally because they have no more money to go anywhere else. So they're really push themselves to the limit. If you do that, you better pray or have some other kind of resources available if something does hit the fan there, um, for those types of things. So yeah, if you're really pushing it to squeeze in to try to justify buying something, you have to know, well, there's going to be stuff you're going to want to do in that house typically. There's always a room or something that's like, that's not us. Let's change those things. So yeah, you want to think of the total cost all in pictures. Luckily, again, you should be seeing those things now on a lot of those popular home search websites. So it should be pretty accurate as far as what to expect from the monthly payment amount. The biggest difference with the buying and renting too on the equity side that a lot of people forget is, yeah, that's a lot of money you're paying, but a chunk of that's going towards equity. And that's even if the property doesn't increase in value, you're still getting equity because a percentage of that payment is paying down that payment amount. And also a big thing too, that which is happening here in Colorado, I can't say for other areas, is the rent. There's such a big divide. A lot of these people that have the rental properties, they're like, oh, I could be making more money. What am I doing? As soon as these leases are up, they're jumping up 30%. So yeah, a $2,000 rental property, like yes, it's low at the current rent, but when that renews, they're gonna get another $600, $700. And so when you purchase a property, and you have your mortgage payment, those things can go up slightly, but it's not the mortgage company doing it. It's, well, your property taxes went up $100, $500, your insurance went up. So those things are much more easy to absorb and kind of adjust to those. Where on the renting side, you're really at the mercy of what the rental markets are doing. And all of a sudden, what was a good decision to rent 1 year could quickly change. And then, so that's lots of moving parts with all of these things. So you always want to see what's going on in your situation. You do always want to research, well, what would it look like to rent just for a few months or for 1 year, just to kind of bide your time and see what makes sense. So that's important. And one last thing on the buying side, because I always see it be a big constraint sometimes, is a lot of people think that they need a 20% down payment. Like, I need to have this huge down payment in order to purchase a house. You don't have to. They have special programs, special things you can do. Again, at the end of the day, it comes into, can you afford the monthly payment and 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 still have room to absorb kind of miscellaneous costs and expenses that might come up with repairing and maintaining it, and all of that. But if that still makes sense and it's important to you to buy and it's one of your goals, well, you don't have to wait till 20% down payment, because what happens is that 20% down payment is a moving target if home properties go up. If a $500,000 property increases 600,000, well, your 20% down payment just increased another $20,000 basically. So you thought it was 125,000, now it's 145,000 that you're chasing constantly. So there's definitely things and resources available. You don't have to wait, but you still need to make sure that you can afford it on a monthly basis. So this is an interesting one that you have more choice. This is very personal to each and every one of you that are watching today. Is the time versus money kind of equation. Is what's more important to you, time or your money? And at some point, where that happiness kind of scale from the beginning does start to shift a little bit and you can make it jump a little bit higher is if you are outsourcing things that you don't enjoy. So we just got a ton of snow here and I was kicking myself like I should have really paid someone to come and shovel my driveway because this is taking a lot of my time, a lot of my energy, and I have the resources to do it, but I'm still kind of in that fine line of like, I don't want to necessarily spend money if I don't need to, but that's one I definitely could have, and I would have enjoyed that day, especially that hour or two of doing that a lot more. And so this thing is going to be personal, what your situation is, and also how much excess income you have. Because you could outsource everything, but then not have money to actually do your goals. You're not ever going to be able to retire. And so you'll want that game plan, understand where that extra money is. And if you're on track for everything, well, that's why you can take more time to go on vacation more, or you can outsource things that you don't like doing, like mowing the lawn. For me, it's always gonna be house type things, but that's what delivery is. That's what going out to eat. Like someone else is making the food, it's saving you the time and energy. Yes, there's other components and value that gets kind of pulled in there, but at the end of the day, like a lot of the things that we don't do ourselves, my dishwasher, my laundry machine, that saves me time because you know what? I could go the old fashioned way and do that stuff by hand. Doesn't make sense because the amount of time that would take is well worth the investment. So you always want to take the value of where what value you're getting out of those things besides the time and kind of the benefits that you're getting and weigh that against the excess money that like, yeah, I could do this if I wanted to. And sometimes you can do those things on a trial basis. Like I could have just hired someone for a 1 day thing um, or I could say, hey, you're my person. Every time this comes up, this yeah, you're going to be them. And so you can trial some of these things and see if it actually adds a ton of value. And if it does, kind of invest in those areas. Any questions or thoughts on that one? Perfect. So it's kind of lastly, just to wrap up the few things to be aware of. So lifestyle creep, it's very easy as the income increases to just spend it and just do whatever the heck you want with it and then be like, where did all my money go? Like I thought once I was making 100,000, like that would be it. Like I'd just be able to do anything I want. I'd be having people serve me grapes, do all these different things. The money does not go nearly as far as you expect it to, partially because of taxes, but also because there's just an unlimited number of things you can spend your money on anything. It's crazy. So what happens is a lot of times if you're not physically and kind of mentally thinking about these things as far as where your money's going, why it's going there, whether those things are adding a ton of value to you, is you just start saying, hey, I got more money. And like, yes, let's do this. Yes, let's do this too. And start to create these new habits. So lifestyle creep, you might think that you should be further along or be able to do better or be able to retire earlier because of where your money is. But a lot of times, like you just started spending more money than you did the previous year or the previous month, and these things become habits, and you just spend it all the time now. So that's what lifestyle creep is. Not necessarily bad, but it is if you're not aware of it, and it's not serving you and actually reaching your goals and having that financial peace of mind. Layoffs huge in the news right now, so super unfortunate. It's tech world especially is cyclical. If they're able to borrow money, these companies will borrow money, hire more people than they need, and then at some point we know that most of these companies will have to lay people off, and that's what we're kind of running into now. A lot of the earlier startup companies might not have good health insurance. They might not have a 401k match. They might say, hey, we have these stock options, but they're not worth anything. So that it's important to kind of understand these things as they start to become opportunities and possibilities for you. And those will help you weigh those different kind of opportunities as they come up. Oh, thanks, Classa. Perfect. And again, I'm not going to leave it on that negative situation as far as what to beware. So this is life changing, right? So you can only increase your lifestyle, like really increase it if your income's going up. So you have more opportunities, you have more control over your financial situation. And employer stock, if they do become valuable, can be super life changing on the financial side. Like you'll still want to have a game plan to make sure you don't just blow it because that would be the equivalent of winning the lottery, but not having a game plan and then being like, I'm like not happy with things, even though I'm like a multimillionaire now. So that happens a ton. You see, I'm sure you've read the news and seen stories about people that kind of lose their minds, even though like why would they not be happy? Why would things not be going well? Well, it's because it's not about the money. So that's important to be aware of there. So yeah, we tackled a ton tonight, like we always do. You can always play back the replays and see what those are about. Um, how to be financially successful. We covered a couple example scenarios. My favorite part of the this or that section, and what to be aware of. To check both negative and positive. Um, any questions as we kind of wrap up today? Think one thing I want to add is obviously there's a lot here. You'll always want to kind of dig into things deeper. This is a high overview, just kind of give you a good understanding of, well, what are the possibilities? What are the things to look out for? And how cool is it that you made this investment in yourself? How awesome is it that you have Collab Lab here to help kind of guide you through this kind of phase of your career transition to really take things to the next level and have more control, have a lot of fun opportunities and possibilities ahead of you. So thanks everyone for having me here. And if we're not connected already on LinkedIn and Twitter and stuff like that, you can always reach out to me that way. But I'm also in the Slack group too if you have questions.
Thank you so much. So informative as always. I've learned so much from you and definitely put it all um, into place when I got my first job. Still
Yep.
have my first job. Yeah, I mean, a couple of those things definitely came true. There was a big layoff in October. I snuck through, um, but I definitely took everything you said to heart and I built back up the emergency fund. I'm also putting, I think the legal limit into my 401.
Yep.
Um,
Maxing it out. Perfect.
because that early retirement is appealing for sure. Um, so yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And yeah, thanks for having me again. And yeah, feel free to reach out anytime.
Awesome. Thanks. And thanks everybody. We'll see you on Sunday at graduation.
Yep. Congrats.